It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our seminar, The Law of Life, and we come to the last lecture that says the solution for our health and life. We have started a journey and now we have arrived to that place to understand that all human problems have just one cause. And that is that they believe deep in their spirits, at the bottom, at the entrance of every information, that they are a God. And the question is, do we have a solution to come out? And we have seen in our last lecture that God found a solution. As every one of us is born in this dead life, He sent His Son, and He was taking upon Himself humanity in order that in Himself He should destroy that what we could not destroy and create out of the old life, after He has cleansed it, a complete new one by His resurrection. This is the greatest thing that we will study all eternity to understand how God could do that. But we understand from the way He created us, if we have a problem in our spirit that we cannot solve, He also cannot come from outside to solve it. He only had to become one with us, one of us, so that He Himself, inside, so to say, of the human being, help us. And this is the genial plan that we call plan of salvation. As it takes, God must take the human being on Himself, and He, taking that human being as a human, Christ as a human, had to solve the issue, because only a human spirit has to remove the error. So I hope that gives you challenges for thought, but this is what is that solution that I found to come out of this. And I promise that I will share how I came to exchange life. I was born like every one of you in one nature, was not connected to God, but was connected to my parents. I had many diseases in my childhood because I was dependent on my mother and my father, but especially on my mother. As a second-born child of 4 children, I was the most affected from the conflict that existed between my parents. And so I was sick when I was 2 months old, almost died. I had many issues, couldn't speak correctly. I had an inguinal hernia at the age of 5-6 years. I had surgery on that. And my tonsils were always infected. I got 1 week after the separation of my parents, I was 8 years old, I got hepatitis B. By what? Was it an infection that came from outside in? No, it was an infection that came from inside into my body. That is, my spirit, who was devastated because of that separation, he wanted to use force, and he used force, and that's why the liver did do that on the command of my spirit. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, like in a prison. I still remember that time. And yes, until then I also had enuresis, that was to say that you pee in the night in bed because you could not keep your urine during the night. I lost it in the hospital. I came home, I didn't have it again. But then it switched to being hyperactive. I was hyperactive from the age of 8 to the age of 14. My mother could do nothing with me. I was just doing what I wanted. I didn't obey. I found a friend whose mother also was not there, and we each other found each other and were having one ate from the other, because you always need a love source to do something. And when he left, we were growing up in Romania. When he left for Germany to his mom, I was left alone, and my hyperactivity stopped. But then my teeth started to become karyotic caries, and then I had to get good fillings, and all those things. At the age of 15, I got migraine, and so on. Why? Because I wanted the good by force. Even 20 years after the divorce of my parents, I talked to them. Neither of them was yet remarried. And I wanted to bring them together, to make them a couple. But why did I do that? Why did I want that? Was it that I was so lovingly for them? No, it was because I was dependent on them. At the age of 8, even before, I had thoughts about marrying. My dream was to be married and have a beautiful family, and so satisfy my need. In my first grade school, I didn't search for a boyfriend to sit beside me in my bench, but it was a girl. I was trying at early childhood to find someone that I thought should love me and make me happy. And the same I did later on, and I got married very early, at early age of 18, and wanted someone to make me happy. I didn't know that doesn't work. None of us have been taught that we have an error in us that destroys us. But that's how we are growing up. No matter if I was growing up in a Christian home, but it was not really a difference, except that you go to church and you have certain rights. You don't eat or drink or certain things, but at the core issue, you're nothing different than all others. So, after 20 years of marriage, of being unhappy, I thought I need to make an exchange. I was 39 years old then, and I said to myself, if I'm not getting to be happy now, when will I ever get happy? Not mentioning that I had all kinds of symptoms, diseases with my stomach, with my back pain, severe. But I thought it's all because either of food, or because as an ENT you always have to wear your hat like that, and that's why you have that pain. But it was not from there. And as I came to a point in my life that I said, I need a woman to make me happy, I was coming to a place where God could offer me that new life. And that happened on the 7th June of 2003, that somehow I let go of my divine being, or of that believing that others need to serve me and make me happy, because there's nothing else, that you have a dominion over others. You see, most people don't know when they marry that they don't marry out of love. They marry because each other needs the other for himself. And that's why marriage does not work anymore. It's completely almost out of of normal because people cannot stay stable in a relationship because they search that relationship for themselves. And their needs are good needs, but they want to satisfy it from a well that does not have that. So that's why they have to either change that well, make the well better, or find out another one that maybe be better than the other one. And so when I was at the point of divorce, when I was at the point of separation, God came into my life. He stepped into there and helped me to exchange by faith and come out of the old life into the new life. And this is the only way everyone can do it. Adam came out of the old life by faith, like Eve, in the new life. And every individual that was born into Adam's life must himself act an action of faith to come here. God could, through Jesus, remove it from the life itself. That's why it's important to understand it's only one life. So from the life of Adam, God removed the situation and created a new one, because that is already dead. But for every individual to exchange that is the individual's action. And it can only be an action of faith. Because how can you else do it? Because you have no proofs. So I want to show this on another slide, and then I continue the story. So Jesus came on earth, and we all know from last time that he had two natures because he had two different parents. The one from Adam and the other one was from God. So that's why he lived a perfect life on earth. He never did anything wrong, because doing out of love everything is not possible to do anything wrong. Love is the removing of everything wrong, because we were made for love. So he came into this life in order to remove the evil nature out of it, but not only to remove the evil nature out of it, but by resurrection, create a new life. The Jesus here coming out of Adam and of his father is not the same. He's the same as the personality, but this is a new creature. Totally new, as we have seen last time. And as a new creature, he is the second Adam. He is the second prototype of humanity. And he goes into heaven as a high priest to do judgment there and come back as a king in our day to execute the judgment. So me and you, we are all born with one nature. I am God, and everything I could do out of this was evil, even though it was looking good outside. You see, 15 years after being married in our church, a family separated and they had 6 children, and they left the children. And God brought us together. We knew the family, and so overnight we became parents of 6 children from the age of 7 to 17. So it was a great thing to do that, was it? But still, I did it not out of love. I saw the need. God has put that in us, that we see a need and we want to help. But we don't understand basically that everything we do just to do it for ourselves. So then you start with the children, and I had great ideas what I could do with them. But it was all, and I didn't understand it back then, for myself. That's why you then come into conflicts. Because if it would be unselfish, there would be no conflicts. Now, after 5 years with the children and having an additional load, so to say, of conflict potential, I was not satisfied. I said, the children cannot satisfy my need to have a woman to love me. And so I had to decide to either change my wife to make her more to do what I want, or to search for another one that would satisfy my needs. And so we had a family at the beginning of the 2003 that were marriage counselors in our and close to our church. They had meetings in a city, and we went to see them, and their message really touched my heart. And so I opened up and I said, what shall I do? I did not marry because really I wanted it. I was very young, and I cannot love my wife because she doesn't give me what I need. And I expected somehow that they should say, okay, you're a poor guy, you need to find another one to make you happy. But they tried to help me to see my issue, because my wife never wanted to separate herself from me. But I wanted, because I thought she is the problem of my life. I never thought that the problem is in me. No, you never see it, because in every counseling that I did, and it's thousands of people, everyone sees the issue outside of him, not in himself. Even when you ask Christians, why did Jesus Christ came on earth? To solve an inside problem in himself or to solve an outside problem? Everyone will say to solve an outside problem. If we look into this situation that we are now on earth, we'll see that the Jewish nations, the Jewish believing people, believe that the Messiah must come, but that he does not come to save them from an inside issue, but from a bad world. But the problem that we have is in us, not outside of us. But I was raised in my church, but no one told me, even though in the religious doctrines somehow it comes out that there is an issue in man, but it is not addressed correctly so that the child from very early should understand it was not made that someone should serve it, but it was made to serve. But that's not the case. Everyone in the church or wherever you go, in which religion, expects from the other one to serve him, to do him that what he believes is right. So I couldn't understand. I considered myself a very unselfish person. I considered myself to be quite not having great wishes. I thought I'm a modest person. I just wanted a woman, a wife, to understand me. How many are there on earth that can understand a man? I wanted one that would listen to me, not necessarily to obey, but listen when you talk. Because most of them don't even listen when you start talking. Their mind is so fast, they know already what you want to say, and so they come into it and you lost it. And then, as harmony is my greatest need, I wanted a woman, a wife that when you wake up in the morning and the first thing you see in her face is that she smiles. She's a happy woman. And from her happiness you can live. I was the most funniest person since I was a child. I always had to do jokes because I lived from the smiles and laughing of others. I wasn't aware of that. No one explained it to me, and no one has ever helped us to see it. And I thank God that He helped me to see this in my practice with my patients. But I only could see it after He brought me to that experience. I call it the experience of the cross, the new birth, where something in me changed. You see, this expectations that we all have from the other person, we don't even realize how wrong they are. Do I satisfy my need for understanding by what another does or by what I do? Now, if you remember well the law, you know you can only satisfy the need by what you do. So when I understand the other, then my need for understanding is fulfilled. But in the error, I need to push the other one to understand me, but will I ever know if he understands me or not? I never know what another thinks. He might smile to me. His face might shine, but he might still be with his thoughts far away from me. And I might think, whoa, this guy really understands me. No. Our needs can only be satisfied by our own doings. If I can listen to the other, I don't need that the other should listen to me. Why should he? Why should he be owing me that? It's totally nonsense what we do, but we are not even aware of it. We're not even aware of it. And I was not. But God was good to me because since I was very young, I wanted to be and serving God. I had a Bible verse on the post of the door of my house that says, "Me and my house, we will serve the Lord." So that's always I had in my heart, even though I was full of doubts if God exists or not, and had no experienced people around me that really were loving people. I wanted always to walk with God. But as I saw, even after counseling, once with this couple from the States, my wife, I realized I cannot change my wife, so I decided then I would separate and divorce. And I made an arrangement with God. I said, Lord, I know it's not right because I have no really good reason to do that. She never was violent or bet me physically. She had not betrayed me. So how can I divorce her just because she doesn't smile every morning or she falls into my words? That's not really a reason. But I said, I cannot. I must be happy. And I said, I will do this. I will find a woman that will satisfy my need. And when I found it, I will come back to you. So I wanted to take some time off with God in order to become happy. And then, of course, finding a woman that was also a believer one, so that you can then come back to God. So the plans of the humans are very interesting when they are from their wrong nature. But that was the plan. So I planned to separate and send those children that are still under 18, minors, to their mother, and me separating from my wife, going to live first with my mom, and then I will find a woman, and then I would go on, because I was 39 years old then. I had finished my specialty as an ENT, and I was thinking, I'm not that bad looking, so I might find a woman and then start a whole new life. This was the plan. And it should happen on the 26th of July 2003. That was the day of separation. That was the day when I canceled the house we were living in rent together with the children, and all was set. But obviously I did not do it with God. We had planned a last journey to this family to the States at the end of May, beginning of June. And there we met on the 1st June 2003. And they tried to convince me, and I said, no, I have taken my decision. It is final. I have proven for 20 years that she cannot make me happy. And so I don't want something evil. I just want something good. I just want that someone should make me happy. So neither they could convince me that something in me is wrong. So another week left, and on the 7th June 2003, we were together with this family to say goodbye after a camp meeting. We were 10 people in that room, 3 of our children, 3 children that were from them. And it was just to say goodbye, when suddenly the gentleman looked into me and said, "Are you committed?" And when he said, "Are you committed?" I did that what people do when they are gods. They know what the other wants to ask before. When he said, "Are you committed?" I thought he would ask me, "Are you committed to leave your family?" Because that's always what I was. But he asked me, "Are you committed to stay with your family?" But as me thinking, he asked me something else. Even before I heard his whole sentence, I said very loud and decided, "Yes." And my yes fell together with the end of his sentence, where he did not ask, "Are you committed to leave your family?" but "Are you committed to stay with your family?" And my yes was loud and clear. Everyone heard it. And I was scared. I saw the children, everyone in that room was scared, because they knew when we entered that room, I was committed to leave. How could I so clearly say, "I'm committed to stay"? It was a mistake. But a mistake led by God. He knows how weak I am in taking decisions. Not anymore, but back then, I just let things go by themselves if I had not to take a decision about it. But here I was. I said a yes to something I didn't mean. And now I had to decide. I could not now leave that yes in that room. I have to either take it back and say, "No, I meant it the wrong way," or I had to go for it. I don't know what made me to not take that yes back. But I jumped after it inside of me. And in that moment, that what God promised me 7 days before was fulfilled. 7 days before, after that long 3-hour counseling, in which I was very committed to stay and walk away, and I said, "I want to be happy." When I walked away from that place, there came a thought to me, and that thought said this: "If you are going to keep my commandments, I will take care of your needs." That thought really made me happy. I said, wow, my needs can be fulfilled. But then I remembered what's the condition. And the condition is to keep the commandment. But the commandment, the only commandment I knew back then, as applying to my life, was do not commit adultery. But I said, I have this proof for 20 years that she cannot make me happy. How can, if I do not go away, become happy? So I left the thought alone. But after 7 days, God brought me to the place of decision. And I don't know what made me to decide to jump after the yes, but I did it. I gave up my idea of divorce and finding another woman. And in that moment, God fulfilled His promise. My whole life was changed in a split of a second. That is, I was a driven person. I could not sleep in the night. I thought I lose time by sleeping. I was so hungry that someone should love me like no one can explain. I was addicted to many addictions for years, in which I thought I could not overcome them. Even as a Christian, I prayed to overcome the internet addictions, where the men go there, to all kinds of movie addictions. I was addicted to every time find someone, maybe a woman that make me happy. I was addicted to sports. You could say it's not the worst addictions. Yes, thank God I was not addicted to other self-destroying elements. But addiction is addiction. And it takes your life away, takes your freedom away. You're not in control of yourself. All those have been with me for 20 years. And in a split of a second, they were gone. I got a peace in that moment that never left me since then. It's now almost 18 years since that day of, I call it my new birth. And I can only explain it, how I came to understand it later, what had happened. My life, because the cross is a place where you exchange your life. That is, you give your old life to Christ's, because he took it upon himself. But he cannot take it from you if you would not give it. That's the old life that you give him. And then he gives you his life that he lived on earth and his new life that comes into your heart as a new identity. This happened to me on the 7th June 2003. And what happens was so great. I couldn't explain it. And it lasts until today. Because when I experienced that, I said there must be a God. And so I said I want to live with this God. And since then, I started a life with him. Now from inside out, not from outside in. So I took the new life through faith by this one decision. What happened when a person takes the life of Christ, gives up its old life, because you cannot take the new life as long as you keep the old one. So let's be clear. The old life must die because it's already dead. You can only take the new one. And the new life brings to everyone that believes in the new life a perfect past. That is, forgiveness can only happen as it is a total life exchange. It's not in particulars, certain things that you want to be forgiven. No, you need a new life in which you or me never have done anything wrong. So when God forgives us, he gives us a new life in which we have never did anything wrong or evil. We never broke the commandment. 39 years of my life were exchanged from a dirty life to a clean life. I cannot explain it, but I'm happy for it. I'm happy that my past does not bring me any problems, that I don't have guilt thoughts, because that's what I once lived. He took. He will take care of it as a judge in heaven, and will come and then know what he will do as a king, as he will execute judgment. But if I exchanged my life with his life, What he does with my old life is his issues. I am a free person. I am a free man who never did anything wrong in his life. Imagine what a thought. Because there's no way that anyone should get rid of his guilt thoughts except he exchanges his life. I had a man, he was 52 years old, as a patient in an Asian country. He was a Buddhist monk, and he had a dysfunction of his thyroid gland. He was hyperthyroidism, so he had a lot of too much hormones, and his heart was beating around, and he had it for 2 years, and he was doing his meditations, and nothing helped. He took some medication, but then they don't have always medication to give that back, so he was suffering on this. And as he heard that I was around, he came to see me, and I asked him what happened in his life, because you can never have a dysfunction of your thyroid except you have a conflict, you have a loss, you have something that you consider your own. And so he told me his story that his wife left him 10 years ago, he fell into depression, and then he fell into gaming, and he just consumed the money of his parents, a big amount of money for that country. And he could not get rid of the guilt he did to his parents by making them poor while they once were rich. How can you escape that? How can you escape guilt thoughts? It's no way out. Because as a God, you must accuse yourself. And so he accused himself, even though he did it out of total inability. But now he's a Buddhist. But there is still no way out through meditation. You must exchange your life. Because as long as that action remains yours, you have no way to escape the guilt. No way. There's no way to change your mind except that you believe, okay, I did this to God's owners because my parents belong to God, and God has solved an issue. He gives me a new life no matter what I did. That's the free gift of salvation. Whatever you did, you're free in the moment you take that new life. So I explained to him to take that, and I promised him then he would be healed because he needs a new life. He can do whatever measurements he wants. If he does not change his identity, if he does not exchange his life to give the old life where it belongs to Christ, that he should judge it, and he takes the new life in which there is no sin, he never did anything wrong to his parents, there's no way to escape. He cannot pay back. You see, our righteousness system, as I tried to explain it in my last lecture, must be satisfied on both sides, on what I did and on what others did to me. Now, this lady in my last lecture that was so sick because others owed her so much. There was physical abuse, sexual abuse. There was abuse of her child by her husband. The parents left her, so that's also an abuse when you're rejected by your own parents. And now this lady is, so to say, the victim of what others did to her. The only way to escape is that she would understand that it was not done unto her, But in order to understand that, she must understand and exchange the life. She must say, okay, I give this old life to Christ because now He takes care for all that what was done wrong unto Him in the judgment. He will judge about that what others have done unto me. But I can leave them all out of my prisonership, out of my as debtors unto me personally. You see, the cross, I don't know other meaning, under other means by which you get rid in a second, in a split of a second, from your past, whatever that past was. You're free. And it is not coming back. You're free from what others have done unto you, and you're free from what you have done unto others. Could there be a greater relief? There is none that I know. And it does not need hours or months of therapies, or I don't know what kind of schemes and meditations and courses of learning, I don't know what. Nothing can help except a new identity, a new life. The old life is not mine. I have a new one. Now my wife sometimes remembers me about the old life. But thank God I can tell her, say, well, talk to my Lord, I gave it to Him, so He's now in charge of the old life. I have His new life out of which I live. That's why the Bible knows only one solution to the human problem, because actually there is only one. It is the exchange of the dead life with the living life. The exchange of the old life in deception with a life of truth. Now, how does that work after the cross? What happened with me after the 7th June 2003? Now, yes, I still have parts of that old nature, and that must come out. And when it comes out, I see myself, and then I need to go to the cross because I need to cover up what I did yesterday. But at the same time, I say, okay, where was the deception? Where did I play God so that I did what I did? And that only the Holy Spirit can help me to see. And if I remove that from my mind, I kill that wrong idea and replace it with the new one. So to say, I take you remember the image from last presentation with the stone. I cannot remove the stone from my spirit, but I must remove it. So God gives me now the hammer, and I can remove it part of part as it comes to that I realize it. So Christ is the means that I now implement in my life. And so I have journeyed, and I still every day must go to the cross. I need the life of Christ to cover me up because He never sinned. But I need His new life to come and make me become free, more free day by day, until I do not deceive myself anymore. Who am I? But I know I'm a child of God. That is, I must become free. I must be liberated from inside. And until that point, I also need forgiveness. But there must be an end of this journey, of this process, and I want to come to that end. I want to be so convinced of who I am that this old nature, that this stone I have removed completely from my heart by implementing the new life to be a new creature. But this you can only do by faith. I have no proof that my old life is gone, except that my mind is free. And no one can really change that except he has that new life of Christ that comes into our life by his Holy Spirit. So this is the way a person comes out, step by step, of his own deception. That's why when I do wrong things, and I'm still doing wrong things every day, unfortunately, I don't blame myself for it, because I know I do it out of that old nature, because the new one has not yet been replaced. It has not yet replaced it. And so I ask God, and that's my daily time with him, to go through the old day or the last day, to check why did I do what I do. And so he helps me to become aware of my own way of thinking. Because you see, as humans, we have given the ability to see ourselves, to know ourselves. And to not know yourself is the greatest issue that humans have. To lose control because you have no idea why suddenly that popped up in your life. That we need to eliminate. God cannot do it in us except he gives us the truth, and I take it and use it. Because I have to remove the error every day, give it to Christ, and take his new life that covers me of his forgiveness, because I must be at any time of my life without fault, without sin. Only then God can fulfill, righteousness is fulfilled. One single problem, one single bad thing in a life will lead to total death. So we need a pure life at all times. And this is the new thing, that's the beautiful thing that God gives us through his Son. But it's my action that uses the means. Like I have the apple, God gives me the apple, but I need to bite and masticate and swallow it. So the same thing happens on spiritual level. God gives me the apple, he gives me the new life, but it's my faith that needs to take it in exchange to the old. And as in our days Jesus will come, he will change us then, those who are alive in the new creature, then to be united. Then I become like Christ as he was when he came out of the grave. So this is in basic the exchange of life. And now I put that into another picture so that we might understand it, because this is the core issue that needs to be understood. So I am born as the one that believes is God, and I am worshiping humans, animals, and Satan because I have to take from them. To be dependent on that person, that is to worship. The result is disease. Yes, disease is a result, one of the results. I just take the disease here as a result because we are talking about health. And as I am remaining like that, I have no way out. So the only way out is the cross, in which I exchange, I give up the old life, I give it to Christ, and I receive his new life. But that happens step by step. As I realize it, day by day, walking, it's also sometimes a hard battle to understand why you do what you do, but you need to see it. If you don't see it, you cannot change, because it's us who have to be able to see ourselves. It's not a mystical thing. Yes, I don't know how the power of the apple works. I mean, the muscle uses that power, but no one can explain that. So we might not explain how a thing works, but it only can work as I consciously use the information about what comes into me or not. We are at no moment possessed, because possession is deception. We must act ourselves. And I think this is beautiful. And I'm thankful that I'm growing And even though the road sometimes gets very steep, I still have the faith I'm going to make it. I still have the faith that one day I won't worship any humans anymore. I will take that love from God and give it to others, because this is the fulfilling of the law. If I am in the truth, then God is who I worship. I take love from Him. That's the first commandment that says, love God with all thy heart. And now I love God with all my heart, soul, and might, because there's no one else there on that side of the channel, because we understand we are a channel. So that's my dependency. He is my bread that I eat and drink, because I can never give anything to the bread or to the water when I drink it. You never give anything to the means that you use. And I hope that's clear. That's the law. No one can change that. I only take that from God. So I take from Him the love. He is my food. He is my wellspring. He is my everything. But I don't take it for me. I take it for those around me, because I was made to live together with my wife, not from her, but together with her. I was made to live together with my patients, not from them, but with them. And that's a great difference. If I'm a physician, would be dependent on my patient to get something from them, even though it would just be means like money, I would be not faithful to my patients, because I must know I am there to share what I have taken from God. That's why I'm there. And that's why I go and do my job. It is giving to them. I want at all time to be independent on my patients. That's why they take money for counseling. Just those things are paid that are like when I do some consultation, because they are very well, structured in Germany when you work as a physician, how much you get for each action or consultation on the body. But for speaking with the patients, there's no time. In the, there is not even, it's not even calculated that we should take time for the patient, because it's not paid. So that's why I don't want that. I want to live. I have been now for 17 years in my practice, and I have not had any real want, even though I went to very difficult times, but a real want I never experienced. It was just in the head, it's just in the bank, but in reality, I always had food, I had a shelter to sleep, I never had a want. So this is the fulfilling of the law. It is as simple as I could put it here. I was made to worship God, to take from Him, and my wife was made that we should share together what each one would take from God, and put two forces to unite to do things that make pleasure. Everything that God has given us to do is pleasure. But this wrong nature in which we are born just messes up everything, because it switches sides. You, instead of having God here at the entrance, you have all the humans that you must have at the outside, you have here. So how can you ever function? It's not possible. That's why I need a new life in which I am dependent on God. I worship Him alone. And then I live together with my fellow people. But I don't want something from them to satisfy, because I know they are like me, dependent. But imagine if everyone in society would do that. How would society be? if no one would have expectations from the other, or no one would fear the other, what a great, great society would that be. And that will be the society of all those who have been willing here on earth to exchange their life. So looking to what make human disease, and I put all things here together as a circle of men. We all saw that everything in the human being, every particle is a channel, and so everything must work in a circle. And so there is a starting of the circle and an ending of the circle, and we know from the law that the place of starting of the circle is also the place where it ends. So where do we start? And the human being starts in its identity. Identity is that what needs and picks up the information. Identity, I call it, is like the reception at the hotel. Every guest must come to the reception. So every information that comes and knocks at our door must come to our identity. And that information are in words or in actions or in deeds, and we must take that in. The only way to take it in is by faith. And at the same time, we need to bind, to trust to the person where the information comes from. So it's inseparable. Faith goes and believes through the information, and trust comes to the person. So that's what is the taking in the law. And then, of course, comes motivation. And if love is motivation, you do nothing for yourself, then your decisions is to give. And that what you decide makes the electricity to your brain. There it comes the body connection. Your cortex picks up the impulse and leads it to the limbic system. And from the limbic system, we have the first circle that comes back where it starts through emotions. So what we feel as a result of our thoughts is that what we subconsciously have decided here. So our emotions are there as an immediate feedback to the spirit to realize if what he was thought was physiologically for the brain or not. Now, on the positive side, we cannot trust that we might be in the truth. But whenever we have a bad feeling, when emotions comes up, and there can only be a not well feeling or a good feeling, there are not many emotions. The needs are many, but emotions are just the same. So because it's physical reaction, and it might be strong or not strong, but it's just positive or negative emotion. And if the emotion is negative, then we know that somewhere we have not calculated it right. And so we could correct. But no matter if correct or not, the impulse goes to the next step, which is the bone marrow. From the bone marrow, we know that all organs are fed with the blood and all that supplies. And only here, the air, the water, and the food comes into the system through the stomach, through the lungs. And then they go back to the limbic system, and from the limbic system to the cortex, back to the spirit through identity, where it all starts. Now, if identity is right, I know who I am, then the source of love is God, my creator. Then the whole circle will function perfectly and everything is well. But if the identity is wrong, as we have seen, then we have humans and animals here, which then leads on the negative side, on the positive not, on the negative side to wrong emotions and to a command to the bone marrow to produce, by example, an agent that goes to your liver and makes the inflammation or infection there. So all diseases come from the bone marrow as a physical thing. And you can study that. It's very fantastic. We just fight when we fight disease against the bone marrow. So we must understand the bone marrow is just listening to commands. The body has just reactions, no actions. If the spirit will give the right action, the reaction in the bone marrow would be right. That's why the bone marrow either keeps you healthy or makes you sick, but as a result of the command of the Spirit that is determined by His identity. So if I'm wrong, have I wrong identity, everything will not function well. So this is as a conclusion of the whole matter. So do we know where disease is coming from? I hope every one of us now know it. They come from our thoughts. And we put some questions at the beginning of the seminar. Thoughts, what are they? Well, they transport spiritual information, because information also needs a transporting agent. And from the words, our spirit just picks up the information and puts it on thoughts and transports it. And it might come out of us as words or actions or whatever. Where do they come from? We know it's the Spirit who only can make thoughts. He is the one that can work with the spiritual information. Like the body works with what we eat, the Spirit works with what He encounters as spiritual information. So where do they start? That's what's most important for me to understand. It's from identity. So every thought, every information comes to your reception. And there it starts. From identity it starts. What do they do? What are the power of the thoughts? Now everything what we do with thoughts that use an information. There's nothing that you can do that is not a thought. It's impossible. But what do? They govern the whole being. That's what thoughts do. That's why they are most important. But in medicine, they're negligible. If you have a virus, you have everything. And that's not possible. What is their role in health? They keep us healthy or make us sick. So everything is in our minds. So we have a conscious and a subconscious. And here in the subconscious, the origin of the thought is. And if I'm been born to be a God, then I will have thoughts of compulsion. Every thought of compulsion, the conscious, should make you aware that you are wrong. No matter how right you might be in the case, you might have right. The most times I have a fight or I have come into conflict with my wife, I'm right. But the way I act is wrong because I use compulsion. Then it's about me. Then it's not about the case. It's not about her. It's not about love. It's just about me. So then I'm playing God. So whenever I have thoughts of compulsion, my consciousness should make me aware that that is the origin, so that I might not continue it, but go to the root and solve it. Thoughts of fear. Today, fear is the main agent of governing the world. Through fear, you can govern everyone, because if I need something from the other one, if I think my life is dependent on what others do or not, then of course I must fear. But if I am in the truth, fear is gone. So fear is a proof that is still alive. And we should do something about not fear, because fear is just an effect. We should do something about what is here. So pressure, when you feel pressure, when you feel that time is too short, then you know you're wrong. You know that something is not correct. And you know this is the cause. You must err in some way when your body reacts with pressure. Guilt. Guilt is something that destroys the human spirit. I mean, it takes the human spirit as prisoner, because the human spirit can just have two things. He is free or in prison. And guilt takes the human spirit in prison because you're a judge. As a God, you judge yourself. But you judge yourself according to the result of what you have done. You would not judge yourself if the result would be good, even though your action was evil. So guilt is a deception. Yes, we might have done wrong, But who has the loss? Well, I did it to God, I did it to Him, and I can exchange my life with Him. I can give the life there, and I take a life that there is no guilt at all. So as simple as it is, and some people can say, well, that's too simple. Well, some people believe even it's too simple to be truth. Now, what hinders you, if it's simple, to use it, to prove it? It works. Guilt is gone like nothing. In a moment, it's not my life anymore. Yes, I did wrong, but I did it out of this, and now I can exchange that. What a beautiful thing. And I have seen so many people who are destroying themselves through the wrong deception of making themselves guilty. Abandonment. When people think they're alone, they're abandoned. See, when a couple separates, then he who does the action of separation is not so affected because he flees and he might get rid of the loss he was in. But he who is rejected, he cannot handle that. So when we are experiencing rejection and we feel it in our body that it's negative, then we know our thoughts are wrong. Loneliness. Many people are lonely today, especially through this crisis, but still a deception because I'm always having access to God if I am there to serve, not to be served. Thought of hopelessness. You see, the Spirit was made to always have a solution. Now that he believes he has no solution, when he's hopeless, he must destroy himself. That's why suicide is so high today like never before in this earthly time, in the history of this earth, because it's the way the information is put there to you is that you have no escape. You are just a danger by your existence. Never, ever was that kind of thinking so globally spread like today. So hopelessness must arise, but it only can come out of the error that's about me. We only can be in prison because it's about me. If I destroy that, if I put that to the cross, I exchange the old life and get the new one, then my thoughts are changing. I have thoughts which I can move freely. See, those thoughts are nice thoughts. You can think about this and that and how you could make one or the other. That's our free thoughts. Then when the thought or the information leaves the decision with me, so in which I don't think I now have under pressure take any decisions. Thoughts of hope, thoughts that are realistic. You can see, okay, what's the reality? See, I can do nothing against a particle that is a nanoparticle, no whatever I would do as a measurement, except to die or to close myself in something, but even there, I have no way to escape a nanoparticle. That's why I need to be realistic. I don't even try. You see, it's realistic. I never found a man or a woman to run through a wall because I said, just take enough speed and you will make it. No one did it. Why? Because it was not realistic. Reason is stepping against it. You cannot do that what you by reason know is impossible. This is why out of the truth there are realistic thoughts. You won't try the impossible. You won't try to rule others when you know it doesn't work. You won't try to hide yourself from something that you cannot hide because it's unrealistic. Every unreasonable thought comes from the unreasonable idea that We are a higher being. Every thought. So when we have realistic thoughts, when reason bears us way, when reason governs our life, then we are free. But that can only be when we know who we are, when we know that our origin is in God. Then we take from Him. Now don't get me confused. We are not gods when our origin is in God. We are just His child, His creation. We can never be gods. But as I know my origin in God, I know what is real and what is not real. I know how to use my reason correctly, because I cannot be deceived using love that is maximum interest for the other and 100% liberty and freedom for all others. Those are realistic thoughts and thoughts that make wise. You see, what is wisdom? I think wisdom is the exercise of love. When I love with a total interest for my neighbors, while at the same time I don't want anything from him for myself. What a beautiful relationship is that. I can share everything and I will never push anything. He's allowed everything to do. If I cannot allow the evil to happen, then I'm a God. If I can allow the evil to happen, I say, well, the other person is responsible to God, what he does or not to me. And I won't put force into that. So here we are at the end of this seminar. And I hope we have understood that we as humans have one issue. We are born the wrong way. And the only way to come back is to be born the right way. This is the new birth from above. More than offer this new birth, this new life to you, God cannot do. Because He made you as an individual, having a spirit that must act from inside out, that must act out of conviction, which reason must be satisfied. See, being born as a doubter by nature, and this making me a lot of trouble in my life, still does, because it's not yet completely removed, but I hope I'm in the last, it is in the last efforts to make my life miserable. But understanding what's the issue in my life, what makes me today so convinced is that I see that love is the greatest need. And you don't find it anywhere on earth. You don't find it in nature. So there must be a God where you have access to it, because if not, how could you have a need that has no well? How could you need water and there would be no water on earth? Could you ever then satisfy that need? No. How could you have a need for oxygen and there would be no oxygen on earth? Then that need is wrong. Then something doesn't work. So we were made for love. And love is the greatest wisdom a human can have. That means you are not living for yourself anymore, but you live to serve. You don't spin around yourself anymore because it's not about you. You lose every fear. For me, God has convicted me in my practice. That not only that He exists, because just the existence of God will help no one. But He convicted me that He's good. He convicted me that He's love. Because everything that destroys the human being is the opposite of it. And the deepest evil of all evil is using force for the good. And that's where we are now in this history of this world. That's why we have come to the end of the battle. In our days, the battle will come to an end between the truth and the lie. The question is just, on which side will you be? Will reason convince you? Will you be convinced of who you are? Or will you go with the error that you have been born with? That you're God and others are a danger for you. It's all about how you perceive the things. And I hope that reason will win the victory and truth will help you to not only become healthy in your body, but foremost become free in your spirit. Knowing who you are, knowing where the wellspring of everything is, and knowing it's not for you, it is just for you to share. This is life. This is the solution. And in such a society, I want to live when God will make an end to all of this. I hope you want the same.